Bangs can transform you into the most gorgeous version of yourself, or they can draw arrows to absolutely everything that you hate about your face. What's it gonna be? Hi, if you're new here, my name is Gabby and I've been a hairstylist and makeup artist for 20 years. And one of the questions I get asked all the time is, would bangs suit me? Or, does my face shape work with bangs? Here's the truth. Flattering bangs aren't just about face shape. They're about balance. And the best way to understand balance is by looking at your facial proportions. So let's start with that. Here's what I want you to do. Pull your hair completely away from your face, stand in front of a mirror and find these points. The top of your forehead, the tip of your chin, the outer corners of your forehead, the widest parts of your cheekbones, and where your jaw meets the corners. Now imagine connecting these points with lines. You'll instantly start to see not only the shape of your face, but more importantly, the proportions of your face, and that's what you will use to guide your ideal bang and even haircut placement. Once you've mapped that out, you're gonna ask yourself these questions. Is your forehead taller or shorter than your mid-face? Are your cheekbones prominent or soft? Is your jawline angular or rounded? And is your face long and narrow or short and full? These little details, like where you carry length in your face, is what's gonna help you decide where to add softness, where to add structure, where to add movement in your haircut. And that is truly how you're gonna land on the most flattering bang style for you. If you've watched and taken advice from a lot of videos on face shapes before and felt confused as to why you're still not liking your haircut, here is a great example of why. Two people might technically have the same face shape on paper, but completely different facial proportions. So take Sarah Jessica Parker and Liv Tyler, for example. They're both often categorized as having oblong faces, but when you break down their proportions and their features, they're actually completely different. Sarah Jessica Parker carries more of her facial length through her mid-face between her cheekbones and her jawline, whereas Liv Tyler carries more length in her forehead. That's why bangs look so very different on both of them, even though they have the same face shape. Proportionally, I personally think bangs are more flattering on Liv Tyler because they help balance her taller forehead and bring focus to her soft features like her eyes, her really delicate chin, her petite little nose. On Sarah Jessica Parker, on the other hand, I actually find that bangs emphasize the length in her mid-face too much by cutting off her forehead, which isn't that long, and drawing attention to her larger nose, her smaller eyes. When she doesn't have bangs or she wears like a long side swept bang, her features feel like they're a lot more balanced and she looks absolutely stunning. One woman isn't more beautiful than the other. It's just sometimes a haircut will look better on one person's proportions over another's. Before we move on and look at different bang styles, I just want to say one quick thing. Everything that I am sharing here comes from my experience working with thousands of women over the years, but beauty is so personal and so very subjective. There are no hard rules. You should always wear your hair in a way that makes you feel confident and beautiful because that's what actually matters. With that said though, I have noticed certain patterns. People with proportions similar to Sarah Jessica Parker's often don't love how bangs look on them. I actually have really similar proportions myself, and every time I get bangs, I regret it. They emphasize my longer mid-face, my stronger chin, my deeper nasolabial folds, and I instantly just feel off. Like the balance of my face feels immediately off. So all you have to remember is that if you've ever tried a style and something just felt wrong, that's usually a sign that the proportions are off. It's not always about face shape, it's about balance. Let's move on and break down the different types of bangs and who they tend to flatter the best. Curtain bangs. Curtain bangs are soft, parted down the middle or just slightly off center, and they gently frame the face. Think of them like face framing layers, but focused around the eyes and the cheekbones. What makes them so flattering is that they open up the face while still adding softness. They draw attention to the eyes and cheekbones without covering too much, which is perfect if you don't want to hide your forehead, but still want some shape and movement around the face, especially when you wear your hair up. Curtain bangs look so darn good when you wear your hair up. From a proportion standpoint, when they're customized properly, I truly believe that curtain bangs can flatter everyone, every face shape, every hair texture. They're incredibly adaptable. That said, there are situations where another bang style might be easier or more flattering. If you have very fine or thin hair or multiple cowlicks along the hairline, which can make doing a middle part really challenging or even impossible in some cases, curtain bangs might be really tricky to style and maintain. And for those with round or square face shapes, which are actually quite similar proportionally since they're both shorter, wider faces, you might find that a different fringe complements your features even better, and we'll get to that in a second. Air bangs, also known as wispy bangs. These are super lightweight, soft, and delicate. They kind of float on the forehead, which is why they're often called air bangs. They're a great option if you want the look of bangs without the heavy commitment of a blunt or a full fringe. These work especially well if you have smaller facial features, a shorter forehead, or if you just want a little bit of softness around the eyes without fully covering your face. Proportionally, air bangs can help break up space if you feel like your forehead is just slightly longer than the rest of your face. Not dramatically longer, but enough that you want a little bit of balance. They're also great if your face is already fairly balanced vertically and you're just looking to add some softness without shifting the overall proportions. Now, one thing to keep in mind, because air bangs are so lightweight, they do best on people with at least a little bit of natural density or texture in their hair. If your hair is extremely thin or super straight and flat, they may fall a little too limp. Overall though, air bangs are light, pretty, they're very forgiving, they grow out easily, they blend into layers beautifully, and they give just the right amount of softness without completely overwhelming your face. Now I know you're gonna ask this, so I'm gonna answer it preemptively. What is the difference between air bangs and curtain bangs? I get this question a lot. Air bangs are super wispy, delicate, and lightly graze the forehead. They're usually cut to a similar length all the way across and give that sort of airy see-through look, which is especially popular in Korean hair trends. They don't weigh the face down at all, and they work beautifully if you want just a whisper of a fringe. Now, curtain bangs, on the other hand, are much fuller and they are cut to sweep away from the face, kind of like how curtains open from the center. They're usually shorter in the middle, longer at the edges so they can blend into the rest of your layers. That face framing shape in curtain bangs is what makes them so flattering, especially if you're trying to soften stronger features or balance out a longer face. So in short, if you want something barely there and very soft in the center of your face, go for air bangs. If you want something with more shape and movement around the perimeter of the face, curtain bangs are the way to go. Side bangs. These are probably the most universally flattering and proportionally one of the easier ones to wear, especially if you've never had bangs before or if you've been scarred by a bad bang experience in the past. From a proportions perspective, side bangs are fantastic for rounder or fuller faces, or if you feel like your face is wider than it is long. That soft diagonal line across the forehead creates length and draws the eyes upwards and outward, which can make your face appear more lifted and elongated. I also love them for anyone who wants to soften a strong jawline or add symmetry to asymmetry, whether that's in the brow, if you have one brow that's higher than the other, in the eyes, or even in your smile, if your smile is asymmetrical. They're really great at creating harmony without demanding attention, and they can work well on all kinds of hair textures too, as long as you work with your natural parting and avoid fighting cowlicks that don't want to lay in that direction. That's the hardest part with side bangs, are the cowlicks that go all crazy. So you have to make sure to get them cut in the direction where the cowlick is gonna work for them and not against them. Overall, side bangs are timeless, they're flattering, they're incredibly wearable. If you're really nervous about trying bangs, but you really, really want to, this is also one of the easier and safer places to start. Blunt bangs, the boldest bang of them all. Blunt bangs are cut straight across, typically just above the brows, and they create a really strong horizontal line on the face. When done right, they can look incredibly chic, dramatic, and fashion forward. I love a blunt bang on the right person. But of all of the bang styles we're talking about today, these are the least forgiving when it comes to facial proportions. It either looks amazing, or it looks terrible. Because they cut the face right across the middle, they tend to emphasize everything below: your mouth, your nose, your chin. So if you carry most of your facial length in your mid face like I do, you might find that blunt bangs just draw way too much attention to that area. They also make a big statement. If you have very delicate or subtle features, the strength of a blunt bang can sometimes overpower your face. But on the flip side, if you have large eyes and beautiful high cheekbones, blunt bangs can make your features pop in the most amazing way. If you are still on the fence, here's one of my favorite tricks that I came up with in the salon. It's called the hat test. Ask yourself, do you like how you look in a baseball cap or in a beanie in the winter? Do you feel cuter with a bit of forehead covered, or do you always find yourself pulling hats off as soon as you get inside because you feel prettier without one on? That alone can be a huge clue because bangs visually cut the forehead in a similar way. Your gut reaction to how you look in a hat can tell you a lot without needing to decode your face shape or wonder what to do because you may have a combination of two different face shapes or whatever. So seriously, try the hat test and think about your proportions, and most importantly, choose the style that you feel the most confident in. If you're feeling inspired and want to see more haircut ideas, definitely check out my 2025 haircut trends video here. And if you want to cut your own curtain bangs or just want to see how they lay after they're cut, I made a tutorial about that too, and you can watch it right here, because this video is over.